Okay, here it is. Hey you, just checking a ver si pudiste cambiar your flight. That is the most Spanglish thing I've ever texted in my life, and I think that is only fair that it was to you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I wish I could incorporate more Spanglish into my day-to-day life, but unfortunately, it's not as appreciated in other parts as it is here in Miami. By the way, I should point out this is not alcohol.
Okay.
This is un cafecito.
So he comes in and we're chatting or whatever. He's like, bro, is there cafe? And I'm like, well, I'll make you some cafe because I see there's this cafetera, but we don't have un horno. It's like the ones you plug in. The thing starts shaking and steaming.
There was a legitimate fear that it was going to explode.
Yeah, we didn't know if we were going to do this interview for fear of shrapnel.
No offense, I have friends in DC that swear by the Cuban places that they go to. It's not the same. It's not the same.
It's not the same.
You will not appreciate what you have here until you're somewhere else and you don't have a pastelito and a cafe and migdalia, la ventanita.
So today we are here with somebody who I freaking love. I still can't believe this is the first time he's been in person. This is your third time on the show.
Yeah.
First time in person.
First time in person.
Now, you may not recognize him because he's not in his usual, three-piece suit over
uniform,
here.
Yeah.
But CNN and Miami's own Boris Sanchez is here with us today in studio. Yet again. Again, how is this the first time ever?
I love it, man. I love it. I've got to watch the show progress through, what is it, like 6 years? 7 years?
9. We're in season 9
You're
right
in
now.
season 9.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes. I mean,
congratulations.
Well, thank you. I mean, you've been on every 3 years, basically, because it's your third one.
Not bad. Not bad.
Listen, the people who've been on the most is you, Lucy Lopez, Louis Aguirre.
Love that. Great company.
I'm not mad about it.
A great Miami contingent of folks.
Yeah, I like the fact that it's like, journalists, and then the chaos that is Lucy in the middle. We need that.
A form of journalism.
That's I love Lucy. Yeah, so when I say she is the chaos agent in that sandwich, yes, that is 100%.
Yeah, 100%.
Love that. But welcome back again.
Thank you so much for having me.
And and this is the newly married Boris Sanchez.
Actually married, not like fake internet rumor.
I know.
Weird tabloid thing.
Somewhere, I think that's actually why the conservatorship for Wendy Williams was lifted. She found out you were actually getting married. Man. She had to come to terms. It was a whole thing.
My heart goes out to her. I don't know what's going on with her, but I think of her. Not often.
Only when I bring it up does he think of her. He's always like, yeah, I don't think about her. And then I'm always like, remember how Wendy Williams was in love with you?
She was great. She was great.
She seems like a nice person. She does. All right. So before we get into anything, I actually just wanted to bring this up because after a few weeks ago, this was a while ago actually now. So you and I have been texting for a while now to try and get you on the show again. And I think you are responsible for probably the single most Spanglish text I have ever sent in my life, which is, wait, I'm looking for it now. I should have had it earmarked. Where is it? It was something to the effect of, and of course I can't find it now. I had it literally. It was something to the effect of like, okay, here it is. Hey you, just checking a ver si pudiste cambiar your flight. That is the most Spanglish thing I've ever texted in my life, and I think that is only fair that it was to you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I wish I could incorporate more Spanglish into my day-to-day life, but unfortunately, it's not as appreciated in other parts as it is here in Miami.
I think you could make it happen. I think if anyone can make it happen, listen, you made shaved head happen.
I did.
I think you can make Spanglish happen.
We'll see. The shaved head might be easier to pull off than Spanish in the middle of an English newscast right now, but we'll give it a shot.
Well, we'll fix that somehow. It'll be an interview with Rita Moreno, and then it'll make sense. It'll all be natural.
Definitely.
How long have you been with CNN now?
It's been almost 11 years.
Coño.
Yeah, it's been a ride, and I've got to watch not only the network change and transition to this new sort of digital environment, but also the country in many ways has changed. Politics has changed. Media coverage has changed.
Really? Has it? I didn't notice.
A little bit. You have to like really look for it.
Yeah, if you're looking for it, you notice it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So it's been a crazy ride, man. I've bounced around and really fortunate to still be watching history unfold from up close. We're in a crazy time and it's fun.
Yeah, it's funny. You brought up the digital shift, right? And I think that's something that nowadays we just recently had Roger Borges from Univision on here again. He was filling in for me this time, not for Darian. And the topic of journalistic integrity came up, right? And I think digital has a very big role in that, right? Because since everybody's competing to be first, for better or worse, right? That's really affected everything. Like a lot of times, I feel like stories are being reported without having the full, like it's literally developing, and it's not developing in the way that, like, I know you're a little younger than I am, but when we were growing up, they would interrupt the newscast and be like, "This is happening, developing story," and just kind of leave it to the side, come back to it later when they had more. Right. Do you feel like digital is just impacting? I don't want to say the credibility, because that's not the right word, but the perception of credibility, shall we say?
I think there's a lot more
in journalism as a whole.
There's a few factors at play. For one, for better or worse, anyone with a phone has a platform now. And
as you're on this show.
for better. Yeah. Now, that's for better. Take the for worse, right? For worse, it means that people that don't necessarily have the best intentions, and even people who have good intentions but maybe not the best ability to discern truth and value in truth, putting constant content out there. A number of things happen. For one, because everybody has a voice, it's a way more competitive market. Right. And it being a more competitive market that isn't necessarily predicated on reputation the way that it once was. Yeah. Legacy media, as you know, is now more frequently a target than
that term alone is pejorative.
Precisely. Corporate media or legacy media, precisely. Yeah. With that, you wind up in a situation where, because everyone is competing, often these independent voices that don't have the layers of accountability or the tethers to legal ramifications that a CNN or a New York Times, et cetera, have, you wind up with people competing in a way that winds up being detrimental to the truth. And what I mean by that is, it's not the quality of your reporting that gets the most eyeballs, it's whoever's yelling the loudest, making up the most incendiary bullshit.
Market. Yeah.
Precisely. And then something else also happens when you're getting your information from social media. Naturally, the medium is the message. And so when you used to have a newspaper article that took up a certain amount of space and went into detail on a certain amount of things, then you transition to TV, where that same article now represents a 2-minute piece. So instantly it's filtered, and now instead of a 2-minute piece, you have a 15-second video,
if you're lucky,
or an infographic. And so the
140 characters.
characters. Look, the reality is, truth is complex. It's never simple, right? Anybody who tells you that the truth is easy and simple is not being honest and probably misinformed, right? And in order to capture that nuance, to capture the texture of a story, you need time, you need depth. You're not going to find that depth in a simple post. So I think for us, what that means is try to grab attention with something like that. Like, find the contours of the story that are most interesting, a hook perhaps, right, in storytelling. But then once you deliver that, you have to follow up with the promise of actual substance.
Right.
So I think CNN has adapted well, and we're continuing to adapt constantly. Our app is like constantly being updated, and we're exploring different avenues of bringing news to people. But I think generally for the populace, the move to digital has been, at this point, difficult. There's been a lot of growing pains. And I think we see that reflected in society and the ways that people consume information and the voices that are gathering the most attention.
Yeah, I think you brought up something interesting there, because it's the accountability, right? Whether it's a CNN, a Fox News, even a News, News Nation. Because I'm purposely mentioning, people who might be on the other side of the ideological spectrum, right? There's a certain being held to things that doesn't happen with these other people. And I think a great example actually with CNN recently was the pipe bombing. And he's going to correct me because he knows what's going on.
Yes,
or not.
It was an improvised explosive device.
Okay, see, he's going to correct me.
Yes,
he's got the facts.
That was used by these two teenagers who, during their arrest in New York, swore allegiance to ISIS. They were responding to
it was outside
the mayor's. They were responding to an anti-Islam protest, and there were counter protesters. And so for context, CNN put out a tweet that it then later retracted.
Right.
You know,
but that retraction to me is kind of what you're talking about, the accountability, right?
Sure.
Or even if we're talking about with Fox News and you know the election, quote unquote election fraud that they were taken to court. So you know they're being held accountable. It's like you can't just go out and say something because somebody's going to push back. It's a spectrum of pushback, right? A lawsuit isn't the same as
For sure.
a retraction of a tweet. But when you've got these people, who, you know, it's just like, oh, johnsmith.com, where I'm a journalist now because I say I am.
Sure.
And again, who's to say who isn't a journalist? I think it just depends on the legwork they're putting in. I think we could have that conversation, right?
Sure.
It's a very big difference between somebody just saying, well, I'm a journalist because I read this versus I'm a journalist because I spent 3 months looking into
and talking
a story.
to experts. Yeah.
You know, but they don't have to do that. They can go out and say whatever they want. And if it gets picked up and gains traction, okay, so what?
Yeah, I think to some degree you've really allowed the audience to determine how far some of these voices can go. And I hear crazy shit all the time. I don't necessarily consume it, but I hear through others that certain people have said certain things about all manner of issues and news. That's not the audience that I'm trying to serve. I'm trying to do actual journalism, and sometimes it really makes people angry, right?
How dare you, sir?
Nobody likes being told, hey, your ideas, they're not tethered to the truth. Or nobody likes being challenged. No one, me, you, nobody. So, you know, if you're watching a conversation that we're having, I don't care who's on the other side of that conversation. I want to challenge and test their ideas. Right. And Republicans will get really angry when it's a Republican and I'm challenging them. Democrats will get really angry when it's a Democrat and I'm challenging them. And if both sides are angry at you, then you're probably doing something right.
It's the old adage, right?
Yeah. If you're not trying to just please an audience and tell them whatever they want to hear, people are going to get upset with you. What I've taken issue with in the past, or what has made me frustrated in the past, is when you are actually trying to do a good job. You're actually trying to hold people accountable and stick to the facts. And people that are out there, agents of disinformation or people with an agenda, try to nitpick what you're saying in order to make it seem like you're doing something other than journalism. Just because I ask a question of someone doesn't necessarily mean that I am endorsing a viewpoint. I'm quite literally trying to test what they believe by presenting a counterpoint, right?
Well, also, I think any good journalist or journalists worth their salt should be placing themselves in the role of the public. Sure. And I think that the role of a journalist is not to go out there and say, this is what I want to know. This is what I think it's not about the I statement, right?
Right.
It should be about, this is what the general public has expressed they want an answer to, or they want to understand, or they want to learn about. Yeah. It's not about you, and that can 100%. Run the spectrum. I'm gonna probably catch some flack right now. I remember years ago, we're talking, I think Katie Couric had her talk show, and she had a trans actress or model, and she basically asked about the genitalia. And, looking back now, we can say, oh, that was inappropriate. And maybe it was inappropriate even then, but I think, at that moment, it's like, this is a topic people don't know about. And she's not asking because she wants to know what's going down below the belt, right? That's a question most people are going to ask, whether it's right or wrong.
That's fair.
Right? And so kind of to your point is when you're asking these questions, it's not about what you want to know necessarily. I'm not saying you're not part of the public, but it's about you're placing yourself as the arbiter of this information, or you should be.
You're there to serve the viewer.
Right.
And to a degree, that's a part of the process of attempting to be as objective as possible. It's knowing where an issue or a story makes you emotional, sentimental, makes you pause for a moment and recognize that, okay, there's something about this story that for me is sticky, right? and I'll give you an example, immigration, Cuba.
I was going to say.
How do you separate yourself from something so attached to your identity and who you are? You do it by stepping outside of your shoes and appreciating the viewpoint of someone who is directly opposed to how you see it. And you do that through having conversations with them. On immigration, I was fortunate to chase Donald Trump for 4 years across the country going to rallies. So talking to people that support him who believe that his vision of immigration enforcement is the remedy for some of the very real issues caused by immigration. Having those conversations allows me to think this is why they see things a certain way. And in formulating questions and doing research, allowing that viewpoint to also have a role in shaping the conversation then allows me to be distant emotionally from it. Remember, I'm a journalist. I'm not a salesman. I'm not here to persuade anybody of anything. I'm not here to champion an issue.
Right.
There's a difference between bringing awareness to something, shining a light on injustice, and being an activist. I am not here to be an activist, right? No matter how impassioned I get about things like the Cuba issue, it doesn't serve me and it doesn't serve the viewer if I inject emotion into something, because then I have an agenda and then
you have no credibility.
Your credibility suffers.
You have no credibility at that point. And now you have no credibility about that topic, but that, especially nowadays, will start to seep into perception about everything else.
For sure.
Because it's, if you feel that way about this, then you must feel this way about this, whether you do or not.
If you don't fall in line with the tribe's prescribed outlook, then you are not a friend of the tribe. You're against my belief. And to me, I don't give a shit. Like I'm not there to make people feel good, right? I'm there to inform and to have an educated conversation. And I think the viewers that I at least appreciate the most and that I am trying to appeal to is the kind of viewer that understands this isn't personal. This is about issues and this is about having a deeper understanding of the truth. And getting at the truth is complicated. Like I said, it's not simple, and anybody who tells you that it is,
life is full of gray,
is not being straightforward.
Yeah, you had I'll go in the way back machine. You had a situation a couple months back, right, where you were accused of editing. I guess I don't know how I don't know how to formulate what the accusation was.
It wasn't editing. That was one of the most unique experiences of my entire career.
Never forget, guys. He does live TV. No. And I say true. Because it's a good setup, right? It's like many times people, across the board, when you're on live TV, people like to then come at you afterwards and criticize because, it's like in that moment, you have to think on your feet. You don't know what's happening. There could be something as simple as a glitch or an edit or a blackout or whatever. So that is always going to complicate any broadcast where you are flying without a net.
But this is a perfect, by the way, I should point out, this is not alcohol. Okay. This is un cafecito, just in case there's any confusion.
Speaking of, I like to be challenged. So he comes in and we're chatting or whatever. He's like, bro, is there cafe? I'm like, well, I'll make you some cafe because I see there's this cafetera, but we don't have un horno. It's like the ones you plug in. I've never used that before. The thing starts shaking, steaming.
There was a legitimate fear that it was going to explode.
We didn't know if we were going to do this interview for fear of shrapnel.
The cafetera starts shaking. Yeah. There's like steam coming out. The water starts pouring out of the sides. But it turned out delicious, so I'm very grateful.
So see,
top notch.
Cafe, pastelitos. I mean,
pastelitos.
You can't say
you crushed it.
Listen, you know what? What have you done, Wolf Blitzer?
No, don't.
Have you ever made cafecito?
I love Wolf Blitzer.
Huh?
Don't call him out.
So.
No. Right. He was at my wedding. He was doing the Dougie at my wedding. It was amazing. I'm serious. He's amazing.
All right. He did the Dougie at your wedding. All is forgiven.
Yeah,
all
right. No, look. So what you're talking about is I was interviewing Stephen Miller, who's a senior advisor to the president, and he's a lightning rod, and I think he enjoys having combative conversations. And there was a point as we're speaking where there was an actual glitch. So we wear something called IFBs. It's an earpiece, and you're supposed to be fed what the other person is saying so that when you're having a remote conversation, you can hear them. Basically what happened is that somewhere in our million wires got crossed and he got patched to a different feed of CNN, to CNN International. Oh. So suddenly he's in the middle of an answer and he starts hearing a report about children in Guatemala or something, right? That was literally what it was, children in South America. And so, or Central America. And so he like stops talking. And immediately I'm like, Steven. And then my producers get in my ear and they say there's something wrong with his IFB. He's not hearing you. He's not getting your feed.
Okay.
So I say, I'm really sorry that this is happening. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to figure this thing out. And when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Right. So some context. Viewers don't get to see or hear what's going on in your IFB. Right. Sometimes you'll see, and this happens to me constantly, you'll be listening for something and the feed will change, or a producer starts yammering as you're trying to have a conversation and you see the reporter or the anchor take it out because it's very distracting to have a voice in your head. I've told my team, like, keep that stuff to a minimum, time cues and that sort of thing, because it's very distracting. Imagine we're talking here and there's a voice in your head saying, you know,
oh, I don't like hearing my own voice in my head sometimes, so I can't imagine what that is. Yeah,
it's a lot. And so when we came back, I said, Steve and I apologize. There's been a glitch, and I wanted to publicly let him know that there was contrition because of that technical issue. In part because a few weeks earlier, he and the president had been at the United Nations, and they made accusations about the folks at the United Nations that there was a teleprompter issue, that there were some technical issues, and I have no idea if this is true or not. The UN came out and denied it, but apparently they made it seem like it was malicious, and I wanted to be clear, we weren't trying to mess with anything. We were trying to have a serious conversation
on live television.
On live television. So I apologized to him. And then we continued the conversation. It wound up being 10 minutes. It got combative at the end. He called my questions dumb. He was very upset that I asked about race being an issue in the immigration crackdown, which, you know, he's been upset about that during multiple interviews in the past. The interview ends and I think, okay, like, I felt like I challenged him on the things that I wanted to challenge him on. Mm-hmm. I zeroed in on his definition of terrorist in terms of anti-ICE protesters, which later on, months later, made headlines again because of his description of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. And so it ends. And then afterward, I realize I'm getting a ton of hate online because when he stopped talking, he had said something about the president having plenary authority. Essentially that the executive has immense decision-making power when it comes to things like sending the military into U.S. cities and breaking that divide between civilian law enforcement. And I realized, like, somebody online saw that and thought that perhaps he revealed something that he shouldn't have revealed and stopped himself, or was stopped by somebody in his ear, because people always stop Stephen Miller from saying what he thinks, which is never the case, right? And so it started coming back on me like there was a conspiracy and I was covering for him.
Oh, so now you're in cahoots.
So now I'm in cahoots with the administration, right? Right. So, you know, that in itself, at the time, I was like, are you kidding me? This is so frustrating. They didn't watch the rest of the interview where he starts yelling at me. Of course not. Right?
Well, no, it doesn't matter. The rest of the interview didn't matter at that point, Boris.
Right. Because now I'm suddenly like carrying water for the administration, which if you watch the body of my work that interview, it's silly. But go. Just to go back to what we were talking about before, it was just somebody who tweeted that. It wasn't somebody like that was paying attention to things that Stephen has said before, because months earlier, he said the same thing on CNN about plenary authority. He said it in other interviews. The Trump administration has literally made this argument in court. So there are court documents that state the president's plenary authority as being a legitimate view that the administration has over his powers. So it's not as if somebody had a legitimate criticism. It was somebody who thinks they saw something and uncovered a conspiracy. Everything is a conspiracy when you don't understand how anything works, right? And so I am naturally a skeptical person about what people say, and I trust my own instincts over what other people say. Trust but verify, right? But at the end of the day, I feel like there's so much energy and time wasted on these frivolous things when there are so many other more important, pertinent issues that we could be paying attention to. But, you know, click chaser's gonna click chase.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is to me, what I find the most fascinating about that incident is, you know, I've known you for a minute now, and it's fascinating how I'm sure the week before, right, you were probably being accused of, you know, being on this side of the fence, right?
For sure.
And now all of a sudden you're being accused of being on this side of the fence.
100%.
And it's just like, you can't win for trying, right?
No.
It's fascinating to me that the world we live in now, where it's just like, it does not matter.
It doesn't.
It does not matter.
And even when you...
And now I'm probably going to be accused for trying to help you cover it up now.
Clearly,
so thanks for the views.
What you don't know is that I gave Ish a suitcase full of money in order to defend my point of view and carry water for me.
It was Monopoly money, but it was still a suitcase full of money.
It's Vicky's Bakery gift cards, or actually
that's more valuable. Let me tell you.
Well, I may have just plugged something. I don't know if you want to work on a sponsorship or have somebody else. So
that's all right. You can
bleep that part out.
Bakery. We love all the bakeries. The Vicky's, the cow. We just had cow bakery on. Pine crust.
Nice cow.
We love everybody who feeds us is part of the family.
Yeah. Love that. But yeah, listen, it's part of the nature of what we do now. People are going to come after you, even if what you're doing is, thought through, well-intentioned, even well executed. People will still come after you for it, and it's part of the job. I'm fine with it. I think it's funny because people spend so much time on it, and there were for days there were people coming after me online. I just thought, there are way more fulfilling ways to live life than just raging on the internet.
Like you can have pastelito.
Pastelito,
that alone is a better way to spend your time.
Of course.
I always have this problem, right, in those types of scenarios, because on the one hand, you want to quash it, right? You want to quell that, right? Of course, because especially in your case, if somebody criticizes us, whatever, we're a dog and pony show, who cares? But in your case, now they're really attacking not just your livelihood, but your credibility, your persona, your reputation.
Yeah.
But I'm always on the other side of it saying, but if you give fire oxygen, it just keeps going, right?
I get that.
And it's and I don't have the answer, but is there some type of balance where it's like, if you keep paying attention to things that are just, to use the cliche, guys in their basement tweeting, right?
Yeah.
Are you just kind of making it a bigger deal than it would be if you didn't pay attention to it? But then you can't not pay attention to everything, because then it can take on still a life of its own. And if you don't have, it's a no-win scenario.
This thing with Stephen, it's like a tiny blip, right? But extrapolate the dynamic that you're talking about to something far more serious.
Right.
And I'll give you the example of white supremacists, right? Mm-hmm. The more that you report on them, the more that you report the things that they say, the more it's out there, the more it's in the mainstream, the more mainstream some of the ideas and phrases and terminology they use becomes, and therefore the window shifts on what people are accustomed to hearing. Mm-hmm. So are you platforming hate by reporting on it?
Right.
It starts to get into an area where there are no easy answers, because we have a mission to bring attention to things that deserve attention. And at this point in history, with everything that's happening in the world, that kind of hate, that kind of rhetoric does deserve attention. At the same time, do you add oxygen and fuel to the fire? There are no easy answers.
Yeah.
There are no easy answers.
I always have this conversation with Darian where I wonder at times, because people tend to like to say, oh my God, things are worse now than ever before, right? I'm not sitting here and thinking things are great, right? But I wonder how much of it is things have always been this way. We just now have more ways of seeing it, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's, citizen journalism, like, social media, people taking videos and uploading things. And I wonder sometimes if it's a matter of, no, things are worse, because maybe what you're saying, right, where it's like you're giving things a platform unintentionally. Yeah. Or it's always existed and now there's just more venues for us to hear about it. Or just, I'm going to kind of flip the switch here on you guys on CNN here. You're kind of part of the problem, the 24-hour news cycle, right? Where it's like you've got to fill 24 hours of a day. You've got competition. You've got now digital, which is, I think, not 24 hours. I think there's additional day in digital somehow, right?
Yeah. And it never turns off.
And so now, y'all have to constantly be talking about something, right? Because there is no more 6 o'clock news, 11 o'clock news,
right.
as it used to be way back when.
I think context is important, right? It wasn't that long ago that the majority of the population didn't have access to plumbing or hot water, right? Mm-hmm. And now, with the click of a phone, I can have a full meal delivered to us in 60 minutes. And not just a meal, almost any meal that you want. Right. You want pizza, you want Chinese food, you want Mexican, and I mean, I sometimes struggle with what you're talking about because obviously given the background, we live some 90-ish miles from where there is true suffering, where there is true oppression. And it's hard sometimes to hear people describe what we're enduring in a chaotic time as the worst it's ever been, or using these hyperbolic phrases to describe undoubtedly a time in history that is complicated and is all over the place. The fact is, if you go
unprecedented, as we love to say lately,
that's the thing. When
that
people
phrase,
say, when a lot of times when it's overused, and a lot of times when people say it, I'm like, actually, like it's very precedented. If you look at American history. We were having a conversation recently about some of what President Trump said regarding the Supreme Court when they ruled against his tariffs. Right. And in my mind, I'm thinking, guys, we should not use the word unprecedented, because way back when, Andrew Jackson straight up said, I'm not listening to what the Supreme Court justices decided. He literally said, okay, they decided that, let's see them enforce it. There is this
right. So it's not the first time in history.
It's not the first time. This is it. What I think our generation especially grew up post Cold War, post direct confrontation being something that people were constantly worried about with the USSR, and at a time where the economy reached heights that it had never reached. There was generally a peace in the West, at least. And so we grew up in a generation that had it relatively easy compared to everybody else. So now that naturally things swerve the other direction, they start getting complicated, it's harder to compare what things were like back then. But life and politics especially have always been messy. Politics at their core are a debate about resources and where they're allocated. And people are naturally very protective over what they have and very protective over their identity and their geography. And there's always going to be conflict, and there's always been conflict. And now more than ever, we see it. So we see more of what's happening. We're more aware of it. People are more candid. And again, everybody has a platform. So the loudest voices get the most attention, and the loudest voices keep going further and further to the extremes. And so you wind up in a situation where I think the vast majority of the population, if you study polling, generally agrees on a lot of things. Everybody wants their kids to be healthy and safe. Everybody hates government waste, right? Everybody wants leaders that genuinely care about them, right? But getting there has become more and more impossible when the voices that shape the discourse, that contour the discourse, are realizing that to get the most attention, they have to take public sentiment and go as far as they can in any given direction. And so things honestly are as good, if not better, than they've ever been. More people have rights. More people have more access to more things than ever in human history. Literally, you pick up your phone and you have more access to information, creativity, goods, services, other people than we've ever had ever. So on the whole, it's a good thing. But of course, just as with anything related to humanity, it comes with all the warts too.
Right. Yeah. I have basically coined a phrase on this show over 9 years, which is the greatest thing about the internet is that it gave everyone a voice. The worst thing about the internet is that it gave everyone a voice.
Precisely.
Right?
Precisely.
It's gonna sound awful what I'm about to say, but not everyone deserves to be heard. Like, I'm sorry, I know he can't say that probably because as a journalist, but I will say it. There's some people who just I shouldn't be exposed to your thinking
I get
because
that.
you're not coming from a place of education or of or of even, here's my bigger problem is a lot of times they're not even coming from a place of their own conviction. They're just trying to be loud because they know the loudest voice in the room, even if it's just one person, gets the clickbait, gets the exposure.
There's fascinating work done on the evolution of self-deception and how often it's not necessarily that they don't believe those things, but they're able to delude themselves. And I'm talking about a very specific kind of person.
Right.
They're able to delude themselves into thinking that because it serves their greater good, then it somehow must be true without actually being, rooted in evidence.
It's like the sunken cost fallacy? Or?
To a degree. Yeah. To a degree, yeah. I mean, if you made it this far riding this wave, right, then you're not going to turn your back on it, especially because it'll cost you politically. And that's
everybody.
That's a ubiquitous term for everyone, right? Where in reality, the truth is complicated. These issues and the policies to address them are far more complicated than we make them seem. They don't fit into a soundbite. And that's coming from somebody that my currency is sound bites, right? so that's the gist of it. I think that the sort of the thing I keep going back to internally that gives me peace of mind is the idea that there's so much joy and beauty in life. I was just talking about the abundance that we have in this culture and in this society. If you fully immerse yourself in the culture wars and in where the discourse is on these issues, often issues that truly have nothing to do with you for a lot of folks, then you don't get to experience the breadth of existence and life and the things that you can enjoy. So I take tremendous peace of mind from putting the phone down, turning the TV off, and enjoying what is actually here and being present in what's here, as opposed to being lost in the discourse and the arguments and thinking of the best way to come back to things. I'm like, let's shelf that. There's a time and a place. You know?
The amount of times that I literally will write out a response to something and then take a beat and then just delete it, go on with my day, right? Like, it's just, sometimes it's not worth it. And I get how we get riled up. We're human,
totally,
right?
Yeah.
It's human nature.
The algorithms are designed to evoke those emotions in you. Exactly. And the easiest emotion to evoke in someone is rage. It takes nothing.
Yeah.
It takes nothing. And so the answer truly for me is just put it away.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how do you detach or because I can go a day without looking at the news.
Totally.
Doesn't affect what I'm doing that day at work.
Totally.
Not an option for you. How do you decompress?
Not necessarily an option. I would say that...
Well, I mean, just by virtue of showing up to work, you have to be exposed.
Totally. So, there are different ways to expose yourself to information. I stopped looking at X or Twitter consistently. It used to be part of the routine. The notifications are off. I don't look at it nearly as much as I used to. I just for work, you would want to refresh it. Social media use for me has declined precipitously.
Okay.
In part because I've prioritized in-person interaction or just picking up the phone and calling somebody. I'm the dreaded person that prefers to just call. As you know,
yes,
I'd be like, bro, just let's get on the phone.
He's like, do you have 5 minutes for a call? I'm just like, fine, because it's you, I'll do it.
And people hate that, and I love that people hate it. But to me, it's not necessarily disconnecting from the course of events. It's trying to narrow the way that you consume those events, as opposed to listening to the peanut gallery and everybody reacting to the news, just going and being selective about the news that you consume. An information diet for me is very much like an actual diet. So like right now we have pastelitos in front of us. I love pastelitos. I'll eat pastelitos all day. I'll waste an hour on Reddit learning about things that I don't know about, or even Instagram, just like catching up with friends or seeing what's happening, what is capturing the public's attention. But at a certain point, I know, like, okay, it's time to put the pastelitos away,
right,
and eat some veggies and do a salad and do something else, because you miss out, and life goes by so quickly when you're constantly connected to the internet. You miss out on what's happening in front of you. And, you know,
scrolling is real.
it's real. It's real. And also at the end of the day, like, pa qué? Yeah. You know, I've taken the philosophy that when there's somebody espousing nonsense all in the comments, I just turn them, I put their thing on mute and I just like turn away.
And 9 times out of 10, they're a bot. To
That's
begin
fair,
with,
yeah.
they're usually a bot.
It's the dead internet theory, right? Where there's nobody online anymore. It's all just like
it's just
Russian bots yelling at each other.
Yeah. Which it's funny. I always get that whenever the Cuba stuff comes up, right? And look, as Cuban Americans who have a show called Pero Let Me Tell You, you know, when Cuba stuff comes up, occasionally we have to go in there and kind of correct people a little bit on things. Sure. But then we've always noticed it becomes this thing where the people who are responding, you go to their profile and it's like they're not following anybody. They have no posts. Right. They have all this. And I'm 100%. Like, oh, so now I'm just getting bitched at and arguing with an AI somewhere. Right.
Or somebody who's too cowardly to put their name on something.
If they're even real.
That's
my thing. I don't even think most of them are real. I think it's just a bot somewhere that just like certain keywords. It's like, you know, oh, you're a privileged gusano or whatever. And it's just like boom, boom, hit all the greatest hits. You know?
I love that. Yeah. Tell me you don't know anything about Cuba without telling me anything
about a couple years ago, lo cogieron con gusano, and it was like anytime you said anything about it, I think it was like during el 17 de julio or whatever. Yeah, anytime you commented, it was just like, oh, you're a gusano, the worm emoji or whatever. And I was like,
I don't know which one is more sort of funny to me when people call you a gusano or when they call you a communist. Obviously, for folks who don't know, being called a communist is the worst insult you could tell a Miami Cuban. That's like, and
I'd rather you insult my mother than call me a communist, right?
Yeah, like 100%. I mean, it's like treason. It's like being called a traitor. And I don't know, man. Like, it's hilarious. It's hilarious because again, tell me you don't know anything about Cuba without telling me you don't know anything about Cuba.
It's lost meaning, that word. In the current context of discourse or the world or whatever you want. You know, again, I take umbrage to, you know, if anybody says like, oh, you're communist or this and that, like, because it's like, no, actually, I can tell you, actually, my grandmother on my father's side, before she left Cuba, was called a gusano. So clearly, I do not come from communist stock. You know what I mean? And you can go, we can all go into our, you know, I just learned when we started, your grandfather was a political prisoner, right? Yeah. So, you know,
for being anti-communist,
right?
So like how?
So to come at, but again, it's the buzzword, right? It's we know two things: communist or gusano.
Of course.
I don't care which side you're on; these two words are going to get your goat. So we're going to just, attack from both sides.
Yeah, of course, and that prevents an actual conversation about policy. You know, I don't know. I don't know where the discourse on Cuba is headed. I honestly,
I have thoughts.
Tell me your thoughts. Do we have time for the thoughts?
Here's my, it's my show. We have all the time. It's a sleepover, Boris. We're just going to be here all night. No, you know, my thoughts with this is like, look, whatever your feelings are on President Trump, he's doing what he said he was going to do, right? Whether you agree with that or not is a conversation we can have. But you know what? He went in and he plucked Maduro out of Venezuela. We can have the conversation about how he did it. But you know what? Something needed to change there, right?
Yeah.
Now they're saying the same about Cuba. I will just say this. We've been hearing this rhetoric for time immemorial at this point, right?
Yes.
And the reality of it is, unlike Venezuela, Cuba has no real resources. Nobody's going to go and start an international incident over sugar.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't even actually produce sugar the way they used to.
Okay, but well, that's all. I mean,
right.
Like that's it, right? In terms of like resource,
should
we say, right? I just hope that if something is going to happen, that it happens and that we are not consistently or not continuing to be yanked around. And I say that because, again, we can go as far back as we want, right?
Yeah.
We keep hearing this rhetoric of like, you know, oh yeah, we're going to do something and we're going to do something and we're going to do something and nothing changes.
Every 2 or 4 years at PLMTY, somebody shows up and is like,
exactly.
If you elect me,
I'm going to take care of the problem, right? And then nothing changes.
That's the thing.
That's the part that frustrates me the most. I don't care who's in charge. Is again, we can have a conversation about whether what you did is legal or what. But if you're going to do something, do something. Don't keep yanking us around.
Of course. I think for a lot of people that are outside of the Cuban or Venezuelan diaspora, for a lot of people that are outside of South Florida generally,
True.
They don't understand why an exile community would love to see what's happening right now. For a lot of people that have no idea, I alluded earlier to people that talk about things that they don't know anything about. For a lot of people that are outside of this experience, they'll say that what the United States has done in Cuba is a travesty, that we've squashed the people of Cuba, that we've done all these horrible things through the embargo. Ask those people what the embargo actually entails. Ask them if they've ever read Helms-Burton, if they've ever read the Libertad Act, if they know that there are extensive licenses that companies here in Miami that line the streets. You see them when you're driving. Cuba, I shouldn't say the names of it.
Cuba por libra. Cuba por libra.
Cuba por libra. That you can ship all manner of things to Cuba. The embargo is not really an embargo. It's full of holes, right?
It's almost an embargo in name only.
It is.
And
it is.
let's not take away from the fact that, like, okay, yeah, the U.S. has an embargo, but Cuba has relationships with Canada, with all of Europe.
100%.
With all these other places. But we're the only ones who are responsible for...
And if you speak to economists who are legitimate and know what they're talking about and don't have a sort of specific agenda,
right,
they'll tell you that part of the problem... Look, just a point of fact. The embargo does penalize companies for providing credit and providing business to Cuba, especially if those businesses are dealing in assets that the Castro government nationalized from the United States without offering compensation, which they never. It was the largest nationalization without compensation in U.S. history, right? So the embargo has, to a degree, stifled the Cuban economy. But if you speak to economists and lawyers who work in this field, they will tell you that a huge part of the reason that these international corporations, not even American ones, just international corporations, don't get involved in Cuba is actually because of Cuba's management of its economy.
Or because
mismanagement, the way that they deal in credit, the way that they don't often pay creditors, the way that, for example, if you're a farmer in Cuba, you don't actually own the produce that you create. If you're a fisherman, you don't own the fish that you fish. It is a Byzantine, crazy labyrinth of laws that's all guided by one specific entity, Gaisa, right? That is led by a regime of family and friends that have held on to those assets forever. And if you don't deal with them, you wind up arrested or in Miami, right? So all of that to say that a lot of people on the outside don't understand why the diaspora gets excited when President Trump is very aggressive about changing things. First, I don't think this would be happening were Marco Rubio not Secretary of State.
Fair enough. That is very fair.
Secondly, what I would suggest is that, to your point, it has been 67 years, and the most truly that any presidents have done beyond rhetoric, beyond the passing of certain legislation, which, as we just alluded to, has a ton of holes in it, has been JFK when he authorized the Bay of Pigs, but didn't send air support.
Right.
And President Obama when he had the dialogue with Cuba, in which Cuba agreed to do a huge number of things to the economy, that many of those things, the few that they the few that they actually enacted, they then later rolled back. So for the exile community, the fact that somebody is paying attention in this way and being intentional is a breath of fresh air. At the end of the day, the worry is that the Venezuela model doesn't really work with Cuba. There isn't really a Delcy Rodriguez that's in waiting. There aren't the natural resources that you can hold as a sort of leverage and negotiation tool. So the difficult thing about dealing with these authoritarian regimes, whether it being Cuba, Venezuela, or Iran, is that we have a democratic process. And in 3 years, there's probably going to be a new president. Who knows if he's of the same party? So they just have to wait it out.
Or even if he's of the same party, he could have different
100%.
things focusing on, right?
The reason that no administration has really tackled the Cuba issue for these 67 years in a way that is truly of substance is partly because there's so much opportunity cost that's lost. You expend a lot of energy trying to fix this thing
There's no return.
when at the end of the day, Cuba it punches above its weight in terms of geopolitics. It's 11 million, 12 million.
Yeah.
A lot of people have left in the last couple of years. It's 11 million people, and at most they are a nuisance to the United States. Compare that to Ukraine, Afghanistan, Iraq, now Iran, and China. So there are more pressing issues, terrorism, et cetera, that wind up consuming the attention of previous administrations, even if they had intentions of doing things.
Rightfully so.
It costs so much for return on investment that is relatively limited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, we just solved all of Cuba.
No, of course not.
We solved all the problems now, guys. Thank you for coming to the TED Talk.
And that's the thing. That's the thing that a lot of people, if you speak to people that are deep into this issue, that's the thing that they're worried about. That the Cuban government gives some kind of economic concessions, but not enough political concessions. I think the thing to watch for, I've been doing a lot of reporting on this, the thing to watch for is how they're handling political prisoners. Are they releasing political prisoners? Because if they start doing that in a serious way,
right.
They released
that's
51 last week. There's still some 1,200 that are incarcerated for doing something as simple. I was reading about, his name escapes me, but I was reading about one guy who put un cartelito on like una bicicleta and was riding around, and they snatched them and took.
But that's all.
That's all you need. That's all you need.
Yeah.
So how do they handle political prisoners? How do they handle Americans that are currently detained wrongfully in Cuba? If you see a movement there, it gives you the indication that it's moving along. I don't know that in Venezuela we've seen that quite yet. I couldn't tell you what the timetable is.
Yeah.
But the hope is that eventually there will be enough leverage where we see a democratic process, where we see some kind of reconciliation. There's so much division and rancor in this divide that we've had for almost 70 years between Cubans on the island, Cubans here, and the successive generations that have come. Yeah. Reconciliation is going to be very difficult. So how do you handle it? How do you handle the property that was taken from people that are here?
I mean, I honestly, I think that's one of those you just kind of gotta go, sorry, the records were lost. I'm like, what do you do? Because to your point, like, do you kind of come in and be like, well, your family owned this 70 years ago, so this person who lives there now que no tenía nada que ver con esto, ahora tiene que pagar los platos rotos. You know what I mean?
Tough.
It's like it's not their fault either.
Of course,
right?
Of course.
So to me, that's one of those where people are like, no, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna get my property. I'm always like, let me know how that works out for you.
Listen,
maybe I'm just being cynical,
but it's going to be tough. I mean, there are a million angles to try to tackle something like that. I don't have the answer, but that again, it's a minefield of particular issues, and that's why a lot of times when I see people opine on Cuba, man, I hope people aren't getting information seriously from this person because they have no idea what they're talking about.
Sadly, if they have a lot of followers, they probably are. They probably are. Do you find yourself being, just kind of staying on the Cuba topic for a minute, do you find yourself, being in DC, like, maybe because when I was in New York, anytime something happened with Cuba, anybody who knew me automatically was just like, what's going on?
Yeah.
What do you think? What's your opinion? Have you become the de facto in your circle of...
For sure. And especially on our show, a lot of times, something will happen, and at the morning meeting, we have a call every day at 8:15. I try to not say anything most of the time and just listen and often give input. But on the Cuba issue, it winds up being me talking for like 10 minutes straight. And people, I didn't know. Guys. And one of the Castro kids driving around on Mercedes and, bringing them things that don't necessarily get on the radar in American media. I love it, though, because it gives you an opportunity to have something that differentiates you, something that you have experience about, and again, something that I care deeply about. Not trying to persuade, but trying to bring awareness and context.
No, fair enough. But I think there's also an element of just, maybe as a Miami kid, right? At the end of the day, we do have a certain sense of pride in where we come from.
Oh, of course.
And in our culture specifically. Yeah. And you have the benefit, the privilege of being able to represent that culture on a national, global scale, because I mean, yes, you're on CNN, not CNN International, but your story could get picked up and it could be broadcasted in, CNN London or what have you, right? And I think that there's something to that I'm going to go ahead and speak for you for a minute. I think there's a pride in that you get to educate people about your culture ultimately.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, to a degree, those of us that have ventured into Gringolandia, we serve as ambassadors for our culture. At those rallies, at those Trump rallies that I was talking about, a lot of those folks had never met a Cuban person.
What was that like? Just out of curiosity, because again, you walk in and you may not read as Hispanic, but you don't read as white.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Right? And when I say white, I mean, Anglo-Saxon, wasps, right?
Yeah.
How was that experience for you? And I know you mentioned earlier it was, enlightening because it made you understand a different perspective. But
totally.
What did you take away from that?
I think it's fascinating to watch a movement develop and grow. And I was fortunate to be covering Trump going back to sort of end of 2015, going to the early rallies and seeing how they evolved. And at one point, it sort of hit light speed. I remember I had done, so 2016 came around and I was on the campaign trail doing a bunch of things during the primaries. Mm-hmm. And I had gone to like Sanders events and Hillary events and like John Kasich stuff and Chris Christie and all these different people. And it always stuck me that the most energy was always at Trump rallies. It sort of became a very festive atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And then I went away from doing campaign stuff for a minute because there was other stuff going on that summer. And then I came back to it around September when things were really starting to heat up. I think we were getting close to the first debate. And I went to cover a Trump rally in, I want to say it was St. Augustine. And it was really eye-opening because it had become, and you can always tell when a movement transcends just the niche group of followers that it has and actually becomes something that is powerful politically, in part because of the commerce that surrounds it, the economy that surrounds it. So when I got there on the outside of this event, it was like a carnival and it had become a money-making thing. Merch. Where people are selling shirts, people are selling hats, bootleg stuff too, all sorts of, and his phrases and all that stuff. And it wasn't necessarily just that the merch was there, it was that there was a line of people trying to grab it and using it as a way to broadcast identity, as though this candidate for president, his words not only reflected their agenda or what they want to see happen with the country, but further, that it reflected something about themselves. And by having that and embracing, for example, the term deplorable, they were making a statement about themselves and their standing. And that's when I realized not only that he could win, but that this was something that if it wasn't him at that point, because remember the polls didn't favor him, that was something that wasn't going to go away with this election.
And then of course
it had legs, and because he tapped into something, right? And so, just watching it sort of all unfold. For me, it was a lot of fun. You can call me a masochist, but I enjoyed being there and reporting and having people yell crazy things at me, in part because when I would finish reporting and put the microphone down, and perhaps sometimes I would go up to them, sometimes depending on what they yelled, I wouldn't. But sometimes I would go, hey, like, what's going on? How we doing? Just to try to spark a conversation, see where they come from. You realize that like it was almost like professional wrestling. Like they just wanted to engage. Okay. And when you had a direct conversation with them, it often wasn't abrasive.
And actual discourse.
Discourse is perhaps a little bit too refined.
More conversation?
More conversation, yeah. And they would ask things that were eye-opening, and I found it to be a very educational process, both in witnessing this thing coalesce and become a movement with identity wrapped into it, but also generally about the country itself and where people are politically and where they draw lines around certain things and often how those lines blur and reshape depending on the president's view of certain things, what guides the agenda, what is most pertinent to the self-interest of the day, right? I loved it. I mean, in terms of reporting, it was unlike any experience that I've ever had.
It's gotta be exhilarating, if nothing else. Like just that,
It was.
You can't manufacture that type of energy.
No, you can't. Even though a lot of people try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It was fun.
I think you should honestly, when you've packed all this journalism stuff, in, I think that's your book, right? Like that's because you had firsthand, experience of it. It's
for sure.
Nadie está haciendo cuento about what that experience was, and I think, it is lightning in a bottle. You can't replicate it. You can't manufacture that. There's only so much that you can create a movement, right? You can try to create a movement,
of course.
But if it doesn't gain traction and it doesn't gain steam for XYZ reason, it's not going to happen.
People can tell. There are candidates that I've seen firsthand that are very sort of rehearsed and on the talking points, and there's a certain energy to them. Mm-hmm. And then you see the difference when it's somebody who has captured the essence of their message, and it's not what consultants told them is the thing that they're surveying that has picked up attention. There's a huge difference between repeating slogans and saying them and being able to speak for the psyche of a certain kind of individual and tapping into their resentments and insecurities and aspirations and giving them a hopeful message. I mean, that I'm not sure. I honestly don't know how much of that is something that the president has sat and thought through, and how much of that is his own instinct. I would venture to guess a lot of his political career has been guided mostly by instinct, and it's, no matter how you feel about him or his politics, it's fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I think there's an element. You can't be in the public eye as long as President Trump has in the grand course of things without having some degree of instinct.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Because pare it down from politics like a celebrity situation, right? Like let's go the other route. People who have been around as long as they have, like a Madonna or a Tom Cruise or what have you. These are people who, yes, they understand how to navigate things. But at a certain point, after 20 some odd years in an industry or of being around things, it's gut.
For sure.
It's what is it, 50% planning and 50% just
100%.
instinct. And I think
it adds up to 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't do math. Sorry. I think that's
I would say that it's kind of impossible to fake. And a lot of it is a desire to court controversy. A lot of it is, you mentioned Madonna, an ability to shock. Right. And also draw people into that controversy and that shock. And once you have people identify with you and broadcast your message, broadcast your aura as their identity, then that doesn't die. That doesn't go away easily.
Yeah, especially if you know how to cultivate it.
100%. Yeah.
Boris, I could stay here for 16 more hours talking with you.
We would need a lot more cafe.
Well, now that I know I'm not going to blow up the cafetera,
I might. I'm not convinced, man.
I feel. But see, now it
was ready to blow.
But now it's a scientific method. You have to retest, right? You have to keep going back to the cafetera well.
Fair.
And also we have this entire thing of which you're taking, by the way.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
I love that.
That was the easiest sell I've ever had, ever. Junior has seen me many times do this. If you're like, oh my God, no, that's so many, blah blah. I've never had anybody just be like, okay, I'll load it up. The car's open. I just put it in.
Don't, if you want some, bro, don't say no. We got guayaba, we got queso, carne.
I've never seen this before today, actually. There's, because the los laguitos are usually just the guayaba. There's guayaba y queso in the laguitos.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
love that.
They knew I was going there to get it for you.
That's my first stop, man. As soon as I land here, the first place I go is Café Versailles, and I stand at the ventanita and I grab, even if it's late at night, I grab whatever I can. I always eat like un salvaje when I'm here because it's so good. You don't get that in DC.
oh, I'm still, he's sitting there, he looks thinner than the last time I saw him.
Yeah,
he's like, oh, my
no, dude, no,
camera
no,
adds
no.
10 pounds.
No,
like,
man, I eat like a crazy person when I'm here because you don't get that in DC. No offense, I have friends in DC that swear by the Cuban places that they go to. It's not the same. It's not the same.
It's not the same. Anytime I leave Miami, I'm just like, it's good. I'm not saying that your Cuban spot is bad. It's just not the same. There's no other way to say it than that.
You can't transport the ingredients without freezing them, and that does something to them. It changes them. So if you're in a tropical place, it's more likely to be the authentic thing.
Also, there's no substitution for La Vieja La Ventana, who's
100%.
Who's so over everything.
100%. Mijo.
You know?
Yeah.
Exactly. See, that's how you know he's a Miami boy, right?
100%.
It's just like, I always joke. It's like, the experience isn't complete until it's like, you know, si un pastelito. Ay, okay, está bien, imagino un pastelito a esta hora.
Yo tengo uno de carne. Ah, sí, está bien.
Sí, está bien. Imagínate, Migdalia, no hay de carne, coño. Like it's,
una papa rellena.
Una papa, exactly. Imagínate, mijo, las papas se terminaron hace 2 horas y yo aquí estoy sola y no hay nadie que me ayude. It's like, this is part of the experience.
Yo en Cuba era un dentista.
Right.
Like, all right, yeah, for sure.
Y aquí estoy haciendo un pan con croqueta.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, man,
pleasure,
seriously, thank you for coming.
It's a joy.
I said it at the beginning of the show, you know, you are one of my favorite guests, but
thanks, man.
The reason you're one of my favorite guests is because you, as you know, as professional as you are, you know, the this is Boris Sanchez and CNN, you know,
Cobata,
with the Cobata and everything, but you're just a down home Miami boy.
Thank you, man.
You know, and honestly, we love having you on the show because of that. Because we know we're going to get somebody who's smart, but who's not un come mierda, right? Who's not full of himself, or come mierda in the right way, right? Who can just hang.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that I get to just, you know, say that like, oh yeah, I know Boris, you know, because
I appreciate
you're
that,
just
man.
a genuine human being.
That's very kind. That's very kind. It's always a joy to come on and shoot the shit and coming to Miami and having conversations like this. It's so huge. It's a touchstone because, you know, this is community, this is home, and I had a chance to speak with these like young kids earlier today. There was career day at a school, and that's part of the reason I'm visiting. And I told the kids, you will not appreciate what you have here until you're somewhere else in Gringolandia and you don't have the pastelito and the cafe and Migdalia, the ventanita. Making your life complicated. It's special to come home and that whiff of humidity and the people cagándose en su madre right at the, you know, as soon as you get off the plane and they're standing there with the wheelchairs and you're like, no, me resinga'o. There's something about that as it hits you in the face that just I love and I'm so grateful to be here with you and share part of this with you, man.
That's also why he wanted to come on, just to say that. Because he can't say that live on CNN. So that's why he wanted to come on. He's like, I can curse in Spanish, but let me tell you.
I sneak some things in there. I've dropped a coño here and there. Yeah, but resinga'o's a tough one. I don't know if I can go with that one.
That's a biggie. That's and you got to roll that R at the beginning too.
Resinga'o, man.
Or else it doesn't work. No, not at all. Yeah. But dude, thank you for swinging by again.
Un placer.
Aquí tienes la casa cuando lo quiera. And you know, just thank you for representing us so well.
I appreciate that.
It's not an easy job, but somebody's got to do it, and I'm glad it's you.
It's a fun job, and congratulations on season 9, man. It's really exciting.
Thank you. I can't believe it myself, honestly.
Awesome.